Hi, everybody. Cheers. Welcome to our 28th happy hour. So nice to see so many of you here, and especially all over the country, looks like from the chat. So today, for the most part, we're really lucky that Wuman is going to be playing live. So for that, we've sound checked her audio. It sounds great. There's no need to do anything fancy. You can stay within Zoom to enjoy that. There's one pre-recorded video that you have the option to view either in YouTube Live or within Zoom. And when that occurs, we will put instructions in the chat for how to do that. So I'll turn it over to Kevin to introduce you to Wuman.
Cheers, everyone. I'm Kevin Kumar, the co-founder and co-director of Salastina. Our happy hour guest today is a huge star in the arts world and someone who really embodies the values of Salastina. Wuman is not only the premier pipa virtuoso of the world, she's also an ambassador for Chinese music and an example of broad-minded curiosity, as well as courage for changing the context of what we think of as classical music. If I read all of her accomplishments, it would take the whole hour. I encourage you to visit her site or look her up after this event if you're not familiar with her. But to give you a brief glimpse, I'll say that she was a child prodigy who won lots of awards. She has performed as a soloist with the world's great orchestras, including the LA Phil, the New York Phil, Boston and Chicago symphonies, etc. Wuman has made documentaries. She has an extensive discography of, I think, over 40 albums, some of which are Grammy winners. She has worked with composers like Philip Glass, Lou Harrison, Tan Dun, Terry Riley, many Chinese composers. And on top of that, she's an accomplished composer herself. She has been a professor at major Chinese conservatories. She has worked extensively with the Kronos Quartet. She was a founding member of the Silk Road Ensemble. The list goes on. And I think one of the really important things is that through everything, she has really maybe single-handedly established a place for the pipa in contemporary music. We had the pleasure of working with her at a concert in Pasadena. It was the first occasion at which we were encouraged to improvise as a group, and Wuman was gracious enough to guide us through it, and we had a blast. It was really a lot of fun to work with her. And Wuman, we're so grateful that you're taking out time out of your day to join us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
So would you mind, we thought it would be nice if you could play something to start. Would you mind introducing Little Bright Moon?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the piece called Little Bright Moon. The reason, because of course right now it seems like going to be a Little Bright Moon will be very soon come out. But also October 1st, that's the whole week of Chinese festival, which is we call Mid-Autumn Moon Festival. And if people familiar with that or go to Chinese supermarket, you will see a lot of mooncake. So that's the time. So right now I'm going to play Little Bright Moon. This is a traditional piece from the 19th century.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. So I think, the first thing that American audiences might want to know before we get much farther with you is, what is a pipa? Can you introduce us to this amazing and super old instrument?
Yeah, as you see, also you see the picture behind you. They see the whole instrument, the body. So, but this is, we can see a little closer. This is the head. With the four strings. Pipa with a history probably around 2,000 years old, was introduced to China from Central Asia. So if we familiar with the Central Asian instrument or Middle East, we see the oud or guitar, lute. So those are similar instruments that came from same roots. And so 2,000 years ago, introduced to China, and then the Chinese developed the way right now. If you see the older picture, we're holding like a guitar, like a banjo, those kind of, and then we took years, 1,000 years, and we hold it straight, and four strings, and I play with all fingers moving around. Actually, very flat. You see, very flat instrument, but it's heavy. It's one piece of the wood back, and then the front another piece, and all the bamboo frets. So a lot of Chinese instruments use a lot of bamboo. So that's very briefly his history about the instrument. But pipa is a very popular traditional instrument in China today, and there's still many kids learning this instrument.
Can you maybe speak a little bit about the role that the instrument has played from the time that it arrived in China 2,000 years ago, until now? Like, has it been a similar kind of role, or has that transformed with time?
Definitely transformed, definitely changed, and by centuries, different centuries. So 2,000 years ago, more actually all the master from Central Asia, and they teach local people to learn, and mostly people appeared on the court front of emperor. So it's more like a court instrument, or in the palace with others. So more like an ensemble instrument, company with a voice, company with a dance, and play with other small other wind instrument, or percussion instrument. So by centuries, gradually in 16th, 17th century, and more become solo instrument, and the most we call the best time, or kind of booming for pipa as a virtuoso sort of instrumentalist. That's 19th century.
Oh,
Quite
wow.
late, quite late. So there's many pipa master exist in 19th century. Somehow people love this instrument, actually from Central Asia. But if you have a chance to go to Metropolitan Museum, they have a 17th century pipa there. Much small.
Wow.
Yeah, they have that one. If you look at their website, they show it on their website. Much smaller, much shorter. I guess people, old ancient time people, smaller size. Yeah, they're not. So this is a very much 19th century version, for tuning and play. That's all. Yeah.
I see.
Interesting.
You mentioned that it's popular. It's still a popular instrument. What I mean, so young people are learning it still right now?
Yeah. Still a pretty kind of decent number of young people study this instrument, and now, as I mentioned, now become very much in 19th century become a solo instrument. So that's
Right.
why I have a solo repertoire. But still, the role in Chinese ensemble and in smaller setting and solo as well.
I see. And so, can you tell us a little bit about your training when you picked up the pipa and how that happened?
Oh, I training like any other kids in China. You know, I have tiger parents, and I started when I started playing musical instrument when I was 9 years old, third grade. So and like a very small instrument, like a mandolin kind of,
Okay.
but also traditional instrument called liu-qing. And
Okay.
then when I was 12, I switched to pipa, to bigger one.
Hmm.
And then I 2 years later, 13, 14, I went to music school in Beijing,
Uh-huh.
the conservatory. So basically, I trained from conservatory.
Is that
Ver
is that a young age to begin at, or is that normal?
I was actually little late, and a lot of kids right now they start at much younger age. They
Mm.
start at six, yeah. So,
Hmm.
but went to music school, become really kind of intense training in the conservatory. That's kind of a young age.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I was in middle school, kind of, and then that time I knew I'm gonna be a musician,
Mm.
because the the opportunity to get in the music school in China,
Yeah.
it's called Central Conservatory,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
so yeah, very intense training like any other conservatory, but my major is a traditional instrument.
Well, in our conversation a couple of days ago, you mentioned the we didn't get into it, but you were saying that there's a difference in how in the musical training of people in China as opposed to the West. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, in terms of Chinese music, a lot of music we by memory. We very much learned from a master in a very young age without reading any music score or music sheets.
Hmm.
So basically, on memory, if we see the traditional pieces, I'm right here. I don't
Mm.
need to look at. And then there's a freedom in the music. I can play faster, I can play slowly. There's a flexibility, sort of like an improvisation part in the traditional music.
Uh-huh.
So that's but also the training part for me, because the difference is right now you have to take exam and then go to the school, you have to pay tuition, you have to parents have to, but my year in 80s, everything's paid by government.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so that's why you mentioned, like if you say they see you talented, they
Yeah,
pick you, and
I
they went
see.
to all the place, and they went to all the school, and they talent the kids, not in music, only in music, in dance, in sports, in many places. You see a lot of young age Chinese kids, they're doing very well in sports,
Right.
swimming, diving, or the gymnastic, whatever, everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of a system,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but not anymore. So I was actually very lucky. So my parents don't have to, pay a lot of tuition to get me training as a musician. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Well, this might be a nice time to for another piece, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think we talked about White Snow in Spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is another traditional piece, first notated in 19th century. I said first notated because before 19th century we don't have a pipa score.
Mm-hmm.
It's all oral tradition, right?
Right.
So, and this is the only few pieces, very upbeat, happy tune. We sometimes play during the celebration party, New Year, but the basic melody is from my hometown.
Okay.
Very simple. Start the piece.
Yay!
Yay! That is awesome. Okay, so in the beginning of the event, you mentioned that this is kind of like the Chinese banjo. Caroline Norris in the chat while you were playing said, gosh, that reminds me of the banjo. And I was thinking, I just want to see her do that really slowly. And Brian asked the same thing. So can you, before anything else, just show us how you did that crazy repeated strum on one pitch?
You mean the tremolo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just slowly, like, so, because with the Zoom camera, it's especially hard to see.
This well, this is good. I mean, you can really zoom. If you're on stage, you can see me. So basically the tremolo is all the 5 fingers.
Okay.
If you want to practice, you can do that. Play on the air.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, and 5 comes back. So kind of, and keep going.
Oh my God.
And then I will add in my left hand, you know. That's
Okay, this is really picky, but I didn't catch when you did the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What happens when you start over? The same pattern?
yeah, same pattern.
Okay. Wow, that's an
Yeah.
odd number.
And
So
is
that's
it
kind of hard to
you
imagine.
and you pluck this way, huh?
If you see closer, actually, I have all the fingernails on my fingers. See that use taped on.
Yeah.
It's hard to see. So that's the sort of plastic fingernails. Everything is put on the fingernail side.
Yeah.
So opposite than guitar. Guitar play on the everything is inside with the meat side, right? So
Yeah.
pipa is everything is out.
Wow.
Going
Well, that
out. So
that
that's
explains the sort of flashy gesture that you had. It's sort of
yes,
outgoing.
I
Yeah.
have to do that.
Yeah.
I have to do from.
What are those fingernails made of, and what did they use in the 19th century?
19th century, they used their natural fingernails. So this is a very new. This is I think it starts in the 60s. 60s,
Wow.
we use fake fingernails.
Okay.
Because the 19th century we use the silk strings, and then we go in, like same thing going to nylon, and now it's steel strings, much louder.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
so that's why we need to change our fingernails as well. So the natural fingernails doesn't stay that strong when you see how I play.
Yeah.
There was another great question about why the frets are so wide when you only have 4 strings in the middle. And is that for bending or?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good answer and a good question. If you see, just talk about banjo or guitar. They have much less shorter frets, but for pipa we have bigger frets. That's why we could bend in the notes and do a lot of bigger vibrato. So, and we could do. We just totally push in. So that's the style of the music. If I do, well, of course, very Chinese to you ear. It's because it's a pentatonic, right? But to me, I feel like something missing.
Yeah.
Especially play on the piano.
Wow. So
That's
you
the flavor.
You do those bends between pitches horizontally, not vertically. Wow.
On the side.
That's so cool.
But we also do that. Yeah.
Wow. So coming back to the banjo, can you tell us about how and why you came to the States and when?
I came to the States in 1990. 30 years. Oh, is that 30 years already, right?
Oh my God, yes.
2020, yeah. The reason I've been, a lot of people ask me, and I've been telling, here is a story short, that's long story short. when 80s, late 80s, oh, I'm sorry, early 80s, violinist Isaac Stern visited China, and he came to my school, Beijing Conservatory, and he gave a master class. Um, I was middle school kids, but in music, in the music school. But so I sitting in the audience, and I remember the two questions he asked was kind of blow me away as a teenager and want to be a musician. And he was asking the musician on the stage to play the violin for him. He said, why you want to be a musician? That's first question. And then as Axton asked again, he said, when you on the stage play, did you feel the last row of the audience? Did you communicate with them? Those two questions totally blow me away. I never thought about that. Nobody told me like why I want to be musician, why I want to be play this instrument. So that questions bring me the curiosity. I wanted to see what's going on in America or what's going on outside of China, what the musician's life, what it mean being a musician. So that's why I'm here. But also I want to looking for bigger stage. I want to kind of step out to the Chinese, we all say comfort zone or whatever called the box. And people think this instrument is a traditional, always play traditional tune. But as a my generation, I feel like much could be much bigger, or a lot of opportunity, and to let people know this instrument. That's to introduce this instrument, and also to understand the Chinese culture, and to understand the all the instrument actually travels. Doesn't matter you're European or China or Asia or Africa, we actually all related. We all travel and become something else, become our the language.
It sounds like that was your why, right? So yeah. So how long did it take you from having that kind of aha moment with Isaac Stern to realizing that that was what it meant for you to kind of bring this traditional music outside of its comfort zone?
Well, I graduated I graduated from a conservatory basically. A year later, I left China. So very soon. So my goal is to challenge myself, bring this kind of strange, unfamiliar instrument to this very strange place, America, and try to see if I could survive. Some people say, "Oh yeah, but that's good for you because nobody played the pipa there. This is all yours." But that's not true. This is not true because nobody knows, but nobody want to hear. That's I can't not to make a living as a musician. There's no orchestra, there's no chamber group, there's nothing I can join in. So this is a very challenging for me. Yeah.
Well, so
but
so how
I
so
love it.
then what happened? I mean, when you after you came here, what was life like for you as a musician?
I lived in East Coast first 10 years. So I in New York, in Chinatown, we have a Chinese ensemble. We started there. In I remember very in on those next to the restaurant. And a lot of my friends from China, they all from a conservatory, but different cities. We all gathering together every weekend. We just try to play music to keep it up. And because I feel like ashamed because I was sort of a talented, rising star in China, and I got I win the first place of competition in China. And then if I came here, I give it up. My instrument will be very bad, so I keep it up. So we play in a lot of local community in New York City, and gradually we started commission composer to write a piece for us. So that kind of
I see.
Yeah,
Interesting. Well, you
it
know,
is interesting.
we were gonna, our mission, part of our mission is to make classical music relevant to our society now and to a forward-looking society. And I think you've answered this, but you've taken an old instrument and you have also taken traditional Chinese music. I know that you've done a lot with contemporary music, but you've also taken traditional Chinese music. And is it important to you to? Is it a big part of what you do to um, make all of that somehow give it a place in our world today?
Wow, that's quite a big question. Well, honestly, I don't think it that huge. I'm not thinking that huge, but I just want to see there's available for people to, if they interested, if they wanted to listen to, and but also for younger generation musician, kind of example of you could do it, you know. But also, I think for musician, I don't want to be musician only play one thing for the whole life. I want to, right now this is the 21st century, and I want to see a lot of possibility. To me, I just holding this instrument happily, but I could be holding banjo or guitar or violin or
I
cello,
see what you're
whatever
saying.
the
Yeah.
instrument, right? So
Yeah.
but it's really a person, this one,
That's
myself.
important.
It's not
Yeah.
the instrument
Right.
and how I can make this instrument differently. Yeah.
That's beautifully put. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so you were telling us about a piece that was found in a cave, I want to say. Is that right? That was from the 7th century?
Dunhuang Cave.
And there
In
was some kind of tablature or music notation or something. But you were gonna play. Were you gonna play an improvisation on that tune?
Yeah, sure.
And where was this? Which part of the world is this?
The tune, actually the scale, sort of like that kind of a slow and could be improv that based on that tune. So this tune was discovered in Dunhuang, which is that cave called Dunhuang. There's a lot of statue near the border of Central Asia and China, the west part of China, and across the mountain will be Kazakhstan, that area.
Right.
So in the desert. Long time ago, I don't know when they discovered it. They discovered in that cave, they discovered not only music sheets, they also a lot of painting, a lot of poetry, a lot of treasure in that time they discovered. So this is the basic tune. So I started kind of improv, play around with that scale.
Okay.
Try it, something different today maybe.
Lovely. Wow.
Thank you.
Very
Beautiful.
touching.
Beautiful.
So you mentioned that was found in a 7th century cave, and that this instrument, the pipa, comes from the Persian oud, or at least has some kind of relation to that, meaning that it came to China through the Silk Road. So you know where we're
Yes.
going with this, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the piece Night Thoughts that we're going to watch together, that you wrote for Silk Road?
Yeah, that's very kind the similar sort of the piece. I just kind of the same mode I did, just played right now. So that piece, the Night Thoughts. People often think sounded like a Japanese music because of the scale, very much like a Japanese music. But that's a China that was Chinese piece. I mean, again, the scale from China. So in older days, in Tang Dynasty, and Chinese, Japanese, Korean, we all shared the culture very much. We were very close back then. So and that tomb is from also from that cave, that scale. So it's a different sort of similar mode, but so I came the title of Night Thoughts. That's a portrait from a Tang Dynasty by Li Bai's a portrait. So basically, he talks about he missed his hometown. Night
Okay.
thoughts.
Interesting.
He look at the moon and the mind go away. He just miss his hometown. So sort of similar to myself sometimes, and so enjoy that piece.
Thank you. So this is the moment where you can either stay in Zoom to enjoy the recording of Night Thoughts with Silk Road, or go on YouTube Live and the instructions are in the chat. Lovely. It's
That
a
was so
beautiful
beautiful.
place.
So we're just gonna take a quick break. Um, if let's see, this is our 28th happy hour, I think. This is our 28th happy hour. We have been doing this for over half of a year since the pandemic started, and if you would like to see these happy hours continue, please consider donating to Salastina. We know that it's not an easy time for everybody, but if you have the means and you enjoy what we're doing, not only are we doing happy hours right now, we have other programs that we're involved with, including playing for ICU patients right now. And ways to do that are in the chat, I believe. Let's see. Yes, they're already in the chat right now. So, these happy hours are free to attend, but they are not free to produce. So thanks for that. So speaking of the pandemic, how have things been like? How has life been since March?
Are you asking everyone or asking
No, I'm
me?
asking you. I'm asking you.
Yeah, like everyone, and stay home. I live in California too, San Diego, so we're neighbor, close,
Yeah.
very close. Um, at the March, it started kind of hard, and suddenly shut down everything. Suddenly, all the concerts canceled. Basically, this year, there's none travel, non concert. Everything's until next spring all canceled. So it is hard for musician, for music organization, for all the for us, basically for artists,
Yeah.
but basically for everyone. But I learned during the time. I found out something. Just keep myself up, keep positive. I learned the computer. I learned the Zoom.
I see. Yeah.
I learned I can record in the virtual concert. That normally I barely stay home. Barely home. Always to travel. So
Right.
this is also a good time to think about what's next. What with the family, with the children, and what's next in life. Sort of like a pause right now, but it's also good moment to think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at we don't want to impose on your time, but are you willing to stay a little bit? Are you able to stay a little bit after 7 o'clock, just for a few minutes to answer questions, or do you
Yeah.
need to go right at 7?
No, I'm fine. I'm happy to answer a question. I don't know if there's a
Oh,
question.
there are
There
weird
are.
questions that we haven't gotten to that are in the chat.
Okay.
But maybe, okay, that's good to know, so we can plan out the rest of our time. Is it okay if we move to Leaves Flying in Autumn? Because I don't want to miss out on that.
Oh, the conclusion piece, right?
Yeah.
It's autumn again. Yeah, this is my own composition. Um, um, Again, the title took from a Tang Dynasty poetry. The leaves flying in autumn. In Chinese, we say 杨花九月飞. See all the
Okay.
tones. 杨花九月飞. The piece you just saw on the video, Nine Thoughts, a lot of my left hand technique. You see left hand, a lot of detail, vibrato.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for leaves, I basically my right hand. It's like flamenco guitar. A lot of this
okay.
hands going on, but I don't know if you can see it. But it's leaves flying everywhere. So like a fast piece,
Okay.
rock and roll piece.
All right.
lot of
wonderful.
people were commenting like shred and asking about what it is that you've learned from American musicians. How did you find them, just artistically, and what did you kind of come away from your experiences with those really gifted people in the Silk Road Ensemble? Just can you speak a little bit to those things, like your relationships with American musicians?
Oh, yeah, I learned a lot. I played with the Aboriginal music, banjo player, folk song singer, and I also work with this. Early years, play with a jazz musician in New York downtown. Play in the club. Yeah, I was very brave. I mean, I have no idea what the jazz was, but I just played. So I learned a lot of improvisation. Sort of that tradition bring back to me, because I trained, like I said, I trained in conservatory. We don't have that in China. We lost that tradition. So. For younger generations, still in China today, they don't know how to improvise. So
Wow.
I learned from a lot of from a folk musician, from a jazz musician, but also you mentioned the Silk Road, and Silk Road. I feel like I grew up with the Silk Road. I was joined at the very 1998. Very early years. So. There are a lot of musicians, not only American musicians, but we also have a musician from Iran, from India, from Mongolia, from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, from Azerbaijan, uh, Turkey. So a lot of Central Asian sort of that area. Um, I When I was in China, I never know those countries' name. Like where is Azerbaijan? I never heard about it. And I when they play music during the rehearsal, when they start to play something, and I like, wow, this is like a Chinese song, like west part of China, which is the border of Central Asia. We have a lot of music like
No, you're right.
that's
Yeah.
this kind of music. And they said, no, this is Azerbaijan music. So I feel like, wow. So, so we're all decided. Always happened that every tune I sing, I said, well, this is kind of like a western part of China. They say, no, this is. So basically, we know this is from a Silk Road tradition, from that country, from Central Asia, from all the Islamic culture, that kind of music. So that's how I actually learned a lot from all the musicians in that group. And also we visit. I traveled to Azerbaijan. I traveled to India and to Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. I've been there and in their home. So
Wow.
that's the life experience. I made a lot of friends. Yeah.
Yeah. That
You
is
know,
amazing.
when we were speaking a couple days ago, I thought you made a really important distinction between, and this isn't, I'm not trying to get political at all, but that there's a difference between the culture of a place or a region and the government of a place. Those are your words,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like, working with musicians who come from so many different places, I mean, I'd imagine musicians understand that, I think, right?
Yeah. And I think, yeah, you bring this up actually very much. So I totally agree with you. Like for example, we in the Silk Road group in the early years, we have a musician from Azerbaijan, as I mentioned, but we also have a musician from Armenia. Those two countries they're fighting over for a long time, and they're still fighting
Right.
during that time there. But my two friends, they're just smoking together, and like a breakfast. They're sitting there, drink a tea, they play music together, they dance. So I join them like a whole. So you see the picture here is the Chinese lady playing the pipa. There's a Azerbaijan singer in the like national, very famous Muqam singer Cosmo. Alim. And here is the duduk player from Armenia, also a very known, well-known musician. We all sitting together just play. We never thought about other things. So that's how example of culture and the country and the people that's separated than whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to think of that these days. So we're just coming on 7 o'clock. This is going to end the formal portion of our happy hour. So cheers to everyone. Thank you so much for attending. If Wuman is willing, we'll spend a couple of minutes asking some questions that we didn't get to. There were some questions about the instrument that we didn't get to.
Oh.
And then, you know, you can always continue to write your questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself to ask questions as well. So people had a question about the instrument. I mean, they wanted to know, is it solid inside or is it hollow?
It's a hollow. This
Okay.
area is a hollow, and I think from here going up is a solid. So basically, it's a hollow. As I mentioned, it's very flat. It's
But
like
there's,
a,
yeah, sorry.
it's like a big spoon.
But are there any sound holes?
No,
No sound holes.
not at all.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a bottom little bit hiding down there. There's a very very small tiny hole, but that doesn't. So I think that's the sound. It's very different. The color of different than guitar. Guitar
Yeah.
basically a box with a hole, right?
Right.
And this one it's a flat and very heavy wood back and heavy. That's one piece. So the sound actually come out from there. From this, that's why the sound is the timbre is very different. You know, it's like a bang bang bang. Very guitar is coming in. So yeah.
And can you tell us what kind of wood it's made out of too?
We call rosewood, but not American rose. It's from Asia, Southeast Asia, kind of a wood. But in Chinese we call 红木, redwood. That's yeah, and in the front is kind of a pine tree, pine wood, soft.
Ah,
Yeah, and this part and all the frets made by bamboo.
right, right.
And you see the head, 4 tuning pick, and this is I think this is a dragon head.
Well, so and can you tell us about who made your instrument?
This one maker's name but right here, if you can see, but this is from Beijing. The instrument maker, the well-known maker. So every year I back to China, he always come to me, said, "Oh, you need to change your instrument. Come over."
Oh, really?
I have another one I made for you. You know, like yeah.
How many times have you taken him up on it?
Not always, but if I will try, I will play, and if
I see.
I like it, yeah.
We also had a question just about the range. If you could just demonstrate the lowest note to the highest note.
Lowest note is the A, the low octave on the piano, like a bottom, and then the high is a E,
I see.
the low and the high. So 4.5
Yeah.
range, 4.5. Yeah.
And the sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I said tuning is A D E A. So la re mi la.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Very pentatonic.
So we had a question from Stephen Cantor, and he was wondering, and this is a question I guess we can ask about all of the pieces that you play that were the traditional pieces. His particular question was the harmonics that you used in Little Bright Moon. Was that part of the composition, or is that part your interpretation?
Part of on the music sheet, on music score. That's older generation. They use that.
I see.
Harmonic. Yeah.
I see.
Natural harmonic. Yeah.
And my question is, for those traditional pieces, I mean, how much of it is your own
Oh,
flavor that you add in?
yeah, a lot.
A lot.
Well, just for example, if you see the score, but if I do,
I like that. Yeah.
see, okay, that's different. But
I
that's
see.
not on the music.
Is that?
So is that considered like improvisation or the style? Like you mentioned that younger pipa players still aren't trained to improvise. So are the kind of thing you just demonstrated, is that something that is just natural to
Interpretation.
the style,
Yeah,
interpretation?
it's a
Yeah,
style and a personal interpretation. Each person will play differently.
I see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even each master, pipa master, will all play differently. And
yeah,
of me, and also every time I will play differently. But the main
right.
the skeleton notation, the main melody is still it's there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, the difference or similarity for you between improvising and composing?
No big difference. Because I'm not like a composer. People think a composer, they mostly writing down. So for me, I write pieces, I play first and I
Right.
record it. And I take it down from my
Hmm.
recording, my own recording. So
Hmm.
that's the
Hmm.
the process, as for me as a composer.
Yeah,
I can't not just sitting there, put
yeah,
a paper there, I start the writing. I can't. I need to play. I need to
yeah.
feel. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, the answer to that question that surprised me so much was your friend Keenan Asme's answer. He said, "Oh, completely different." And I thought, "Oh, really?" Just
Yeah.
as a player, that seems like wow. But for him, those two processes are so different. It's hard to imagine that. Your answer makes more sense to me as a musician.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Scott Holler has a question. He's wondering if there are different size pipas or are they all one size?
This is the standard size, and then now kids they will have smaller size, just like violin. Yeah.
Okay, but are there different size pipas? Like, is there a bass pipa or
No.
soprano pipa? Nothing like
No.
that.
This is it.
That's
This
it.
is it. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Let's see. We had some more questions. And remember, this is a time when you can unmute your.
Yeah.
Marissa, can people unmute themselves right now? Yeah. Okay. So you
Yeah.
can unmute yourself to
You
ask
could just
questions.
say hello. You don't even have to have a question. We're just happy to see all of you. Just so
Yeah.
you know, I've got you all on gallery view now. I'm scrolling through and going, oh, yay.
Yeah.
You're here. You're here.
I'll
Um,
happily pipe up if
Hey,
invited.
Ryan. Yeah, please,
Hi,
always.
big fan, of course, for many years of Silk Road and everything that you do. I'm curious a little bit about your training at the Central Conservatory. Like when you study traditional instruments, do you also study like classical music concurrently? Is it fully separate? And then like the theory and the history and all of that, like how much crossover is there between those two worlds?
In China, the conservatory training pretty much very westernized. Although you play traditional instrument, but that's it. Just teach you how to play the instrument. But basically, theory it's all Western. We have to learn piano. I play piano for 5 years, and we have to learn the history, Western history. All the before 20th century, basically, or 19th century, until the Russian composer that time, and that's it. So no contemporary when my year. So basically, very much westernized training. But because my teacher is a traditional, he's a pipa master. So on that side, the traditional pipa kept it from my teacher. So we learned from him, not from the whole school. If that makes sense, I don't know.
Yeah.
So the teaching, the instrument teaching still keep the traditional way, one-on-one and oral tradition, sometimes with the music. And because my teacher, although he's a professor, but he's also folk musician, so that way he keeps. So I learned a lot of repertoire, old pieces from him. But the other side, the training or the piano, air training, everything, history, it's all Western.
Do you teach?
Yes, right now I have like a professor position in 2 conservatory in China. But
Wow.
I'm here. I can't go now. Online teach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead,
I don't
Raleigh.
know.
Go ahead, Raleigh.
No, I just have one comment. I don't have anything to ask a question about, but I met you at the Colburn a couple of years ago, and I don't know how you have become younger. So I was just wondering, I know the haircut is younger, but do you have any tips for how you became younger?
Wow. I'm always happy. And
Yeah, you look very happy.
Yeah, keep kind of a happy young spirit, and I have a lot of young friends. I don't have a specific, but I think I don't drink a coffee.
Oh,
Only-
don't say that.
Oh no! Only green tea. Only green tea.
Oh, okay.
No, but
Wait,
you
wait,
look terrific.
Thank you.
This was great fun.
Thank
Great
you.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Hey, Yoshi.
Hey.
Hi. Thank you for a fascinating program tonight. Quick question. You were talking about the tremolo, and you were talking about using all 5 fingers. Do you often sometimes use just 2 or just 3? Because I'm thinking, when you do tremolo and you're thinking 5, you're thinking quintuplets. So are you thinking 1 2 3 5 1 2 3 5 1 2 3 5, or
Yoshi.
Wow, you're very technique. When I practice when I was young, no, not 5, always 6 or 8.
yeah, right.
You count the 6 and 8. So always 1 2 5 6 1 2 5 6 or 1 2 5 6 8. So that's the way to practice.
But you would still go 1 2 3 4 5 6.
I know, Yoshi.
1 2 3
This
4
I asked
5
this
6.
question kind of in the beginning too. I still don't get it.
Well, so when always change. So if I use the what's the pointing one? So like
Yeah.
if 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1. So everything is rotated.
No,
all the fingers starts 1 1 1. So that's how you keep the dynamic, keep the balance, sound the same. Otherwise, the pinky will be weak and the thumb will be strong. So if you keep that, counting that, so each finger will be 1, start 1, start 1. So that's how you practice.
That's
So-
the concept of each finger.
That's very technical question.
Yeah. Do you guys do this like even just when I'm driving? I sometimes do like
Definitely.
you know, that kind of
Yes.
thing. And
Yeah.
I get stuck with patterns like what you just described, you know, having to start counting a cycle on
Yeah.
a reverse or a different finger. And
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Especially in restaurant, the chopsticks. In Chinese, chopsticks is my practice. Usually, I carry short chopsticks and then put on. Everywhere I go, I just put there. Yeah.
Wow.
When I was little, not anymore. Sorry, not anymore. No.
You mentioned the Isaac Stern coming to the Central Conservatory, and did you play for him then?
Yeah.
Oh, you did.
Wow.
Were you on that documentary too?
Very briefly, I was in the practice room. Yes.
Ah, okay.
Wow.
But I did play for him in the smaller room, but they didn't film that part.
I see.
But yeah, and I remember, and his son Michael Stern was a page turn for him. He was 10 years old or something, very young. Yeah. or 14,
What did
something.
you play for him?
A contemporary piece called Dance of Yi People.
And what was his? I mean, he was supposed to give you some feedback, right?
Well, he was fascinated by, first time to hear this instrument. He was fascinated by the instrument, the sound,
I see.
and of course the little young kid, talented.
So the conservatory was kind of showcasing you. I think
Yes,
to him.
I always picked by conservatory to be a showcase among all the every time if there's important people came. Remember used to be UK, the lady
Margaret Thatcher.
Margaret
Yeah.
Thatcher. She visited my school too, so I played for her as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see.
So sort of like a very privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah, for kids, for young, for us.
So I have a question about the decay of the instrument because, there was another question in the chat that I just saw. Somebody was asking, how do you get the twang? Like, when you're at the end of the notes. I think they're asking about the change in pitch. Like you're pulling the string maybe, or the vibrato. I'm not sure exactly what.
Is that that's the thing?
Let's see.
Or you're talking about that sound?
All of that.
Yeah. And I also have this.
Yeah. Yes.
That one.
Yeah, I have that.
So we can't see that. Can you show us what you're doing there?
Snail drum. This is actually on this hand. So I basically push one string,
Oh,
the
I
first
see.
string inside, push in, and this finger just put it right away. So, but in like 1 second. That's it.
Because
Wow.
the last piece had a lot of sound effects, and
Yeah.
it was hard to see how it was happening. It was happening so fast.
Yeah, we also have a lot of like pisca, that sound as well. Yeah. Modern sound.
Jennifer Diener, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi. I was wondering, are there, with violins, there's Stradivarius and Amati and some of these very famous older instruments that have become revered and highly prized. Is that true with your instrument as well, or has it evolved recently? Or are there older makers that people still want to have?
You mean talk about the pipa have older instrument or modern instrument? Is that what you? Because they're record.
Are there famous old makers from like 300 years ago where the instruments are still valued?
Oh yeah, but for pipa instrument itself, we don't use antique instrument. The reason, if you see the Metropolitan Museum in that one, 17th century one, it's very different. The frets are less and then much smaller. Sound is very different. That's why I said it's developed in very, basically like a different instrument. So we not use the antique instrument like violin or cello. We always use modern instrument. So the instrument maker, they are very busy. They making a instrument in China, but also not in China, but also in for Singapore, for Taiwan, for a lot of places, people play this instrument. So they're still doing very well. Yes, is that your question? Sorry.
So we have some young composers who are who are always attending these events, and I was just wondering, like, if they want to write for pipa, what's a good way for them to, to learn what the instrument can do, or like, are there people here in the States that they can, become friends with or acquaintances with, where they can kind of learn about the capabilities of the instrument and those kinds of things?
Yeah, but I think it's always I always encourage young composer to write for different instrument, not only classical instrument, Western classical, but if they have interest to write a more different instrument from different country, that's much wider for their future.
That's true, yeah.
I think for pipa, the most difficult is the style. If they understand the style of the instrument, so they can put it in their music, they can have that imagination. If string quartet with the pipa, how gonna be pipa the role in the string quartet? So string quartet sound mostly people familiar with, they already know, they have that picture in their mind. But add the pipa, why? So that why they need to know why, and they will be successful. They will be write something different, very unique.
And your experiences with, I mean, you've worked with kind of like the who's who of contemporary composers. What has your experience been like working with them?
I work with who's who, like Philip Glass or Terry Riley or Lou Harrison. Like I remember 1997, basically 1996, Lou Harrison write a pipa concerto with a string orchestra for me. And he finished the first page and he faxed me. That time we don't have email, right? So he faxed me and then he asked me if that works.
Yeah.
I said, well, this is a skill never happened in pipa and doesn't sound like pipa, but that's okay. I like it. So this is Lou Harrison's music. Everything is a line, nothing chords or single notes. Very, very difficult. But combined with the string orchestra, it's beautiful. So yeah, I think everything is possible. You just
But for that music, did you play exactly what he wrote?
No.
Or did you?
No.
Okay. And he was okay with that?
Sorry, yeah. So he gave me all the notes basically, and there's no the pipa fingering, like where's the bending or here is the tremolo, nothing else. Right. So he just handed it to me, say, okay, make sound like the pipa. Basically, Philip Glass, the same thing, like make sound like pipa.
So you co-composed it basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you get credit for it or?
No.
What?
I will put on fingering by woman.
Oh. Well, can you give an example of that? Like what they wrote?
I like Lou Harrison. There's one part, the slow movement. That's what I.
See, to me, I mean, what he wrote, you played what he wrote like incredibly beautifully, but what you did with it was poetry. I feel like that's the difference there. That's not fair.
And I also stretch the time. I'm not like on time play. I kind of like little spend slower, fast, slow, fast. But he loved it. He said, "You're damn good." So I said, "Okay."
That's amazing. Well, I think it's time that we let you go. But thank you so much. This has been really, really lovely. And even though we're not, it's not that we get to perform with you, but it still was just wonderful to spend time with you and just witness your artistry again. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hope to see you. Hope to see you.
Thank
Hope to see
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And it's
Thank
so
you,
good.
everybody.
Yeah, it's so good to see all of you, and we hope to see you at the next happy hour. Thanks.